Tropical Storm Philippe is headed towards Bermuda. Good evening, I'm Mike Naso with an update on the tropics on this Thursday evening. We are looking at an active map. On the left side of your screen we have Tropical Storm Lydia, and that is forecast to become a hurricane over the weekend and meander out there, although it could bend towards the east, so if you're in Mexico, watch it. We have this tropical wave down here that might do something, and then we have this large front moving through. There's cold weather coming. It's going to feel like fall from the Midwest down to the southeast, and then the frontal interaction here with our Tropical Storm Philippe. Philippe sitting right about there, moving on off towards the west of Bermuda. Tropical storm warnings are in effect, and we have areas here in the central Atlantic that I'm going to watch, because there should be a wave leaving Africa in a couple of days that might do something. And I also am keeping an eye on this wave moving through the southern Windward Islands. In October, you keep an eye just in case they make it towards the western Caribbean. You never know. Here's the latest on Philippe as of 5 p.m. Atlantic time. Tropical Storm Philippe was at 27.0 north, 66.2 west. Winds still 50. It feels like this thing's been around forever. It's moving north at 14, so it's accelerating a little bit. And we do have a tropical storm warning out for Bermuda. The forecast has it losing tropical characteristics by Saturday, but still having 50, 60 mile an hour winds and slamming as a post-tropical cyclone into areas there of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Maine, a similar area impacted by Lee just a few weeks ago, and then it should be gone by Sunday and we're not going to have to deal with it. But you could have impacts there in New England and Atlantic Canada. We'll talk about that. The wind field with Tropical Storm Philippe has grown, especially on the eastern side, so displaced from the center, and that's why Bermuda's under that tropical storm warning, because if it goes to your west, you're going to get in those tropical storm winds, and so that is why we are watching it. Look at this track through time, very slow. We had a little interaction with Rena, remember Tropical Storm Rena, and then it ended up all the way making landfall in Bermuda, bringing heavy rain and gusty winds to the Virgin Islands, and then it headed to the north, now on track for Bermuda. The computer models agree that this thing should generally head north and then northwest and kind of curl way into areas there of Canada, but it could still cause some problems when it gets to the coast. Here's the visible satellite imagery as the sun starts to go down. The center of the tropical cyclone is right about there, this little curly Q, and it's blowing up. This area I just circled where the thunderstorms are blowing, that's the area where the strongest winds are. Note the front coming here, and the frontal interaction to the northwest of the cyclone is all indicating a very unfavorable wind shear pattern. Right now I'm not seeing any chance that this strengthens. It's getting ripped apart. More favorable conditions in the Caribbean and the Central Atlantic, which is why we're going to watch that wave leaving Africa in a few days, although that will likely remain out at sea as well. Here's the key messages for Tropical Storm Philippe as of 5 p.m. Atlantic time Thursday night. Number 1, tropical storm conditions are expected on Bermuda beginning early Friday morning, and we have that tropical storm warning in effect. Heavy rain should affect the island today and into Friday, and you could have flash flooding there. Secondly, Philippe is expected to move over portions of Atlantic Canada and New England as a post-tropical cyclone this weekend. So it won't have tropical cyclone characteristics, but it could have tropical storm impacts. Regardless of Philippe's intensity or structure, interest in those areas should be prepared for the possibility of strong winds and heavy rainfall, and listen to statements from your local weather office. You could have isolated to scattered instances of urban and flash flooding. Note here areas of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, even Massachusetts and Connecticut getting in on the potential for a flood threat, to say nothing of Maine. So you guys are going to be in for a wet weekend as that front moves through and you get some action from Philippe. Off Africa, this pattern you start to see as unfavorable for waves. It's definitely turning off out there, but we could have just one more storm that takes a track like that. We're going to watch over the next few days. Some of the models are indicating this is the long-range European. They show Philippe getting out of here and then a new system turning off Africa, maybe becoming a hurricane. Some of those millibars are getting low. And then this wave here I was talking about, there's a potential we could get some interaction with the system in the Pacific and something happening in the Gulf. That's the European. The GFS shows a similar thing here. So by mid-October, in about 2 weeks' time, watch just in case we get some activity there a week and a half from now, not just off Africa, but also potentially in the Caribbean. We're going to watch that. In the Eastern Pacific, here's what I was talking about. Here's Tropical Storm Lydia, and here's a wave here to the south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec. And Lydia is sitting at 16.0 north, 109.9 west, winds of 60, moving very slowly northwest at 3. It should become a hurricane by Saturday and Sunday and then weaken, but this bend back east could potentially threaten areas there of the Baja and the Mexican coastline. Here's the computer models, and they all show that as the front moves through, the ridging weakens, you'll have slow motion and possibly an eastward drag. So if you're along the Mexican coastline, keep an eye on Lydia. Now, the wave south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec, this is a high chance for development, and it looks like this one could also turn into land and make a landfall. And so we'll watch that very carefully, because it looks like it could organize into at least a tropical storm. So again, this is the one that there could be some movement across Mexico into areas of the Bay of Campeche. The Canadian model showing a landfall in Mexico on the Pacific side, and then a landfall in the swampy bayous of Louisiana on the Atlantic side. So we'll wait and see if that occurs. Right now, it's not happening, but this system does look foreboding, and Lydia is strengthening a little bit, so we'll watch it. There's another wave out here, a low chance for development. So it's an active Atlantic and Pacific, and in the Western Pacific, we had a typhoon move across areas of southern Taiwan, now headed to the west and weakening. This is Typhoon Koinu, and Koinu was a Category 3 as it scraped along southern Taiwan. Now down to a Category 1, it should be weakening and dissipating as it heads off towards areas there of Asia. So it's an active tropics. We're going to keep an eye on all of it. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll talk to you next time.